Okay, this is for improvisation for the bass, level 1 essentially, maybe level 2 really. Sorry about that. So when improvising for the bassist's job is a little harder than most other instruments. Your experimentation is a bit more confined to the notes that are actually inside the chords you're playing. Doesn't mean you have to always play the notes of the chord, but you do have to understand what notes are doing what. And so if you play a note that's not in the chord, you need to be able to know where to move correctly so that it sounds good still. Because we need to have be able to play wrong notes occasionally to make the music sound interesting, or notes that are not part of the chord. They make the music interesting, but then you need to be able to land back on a note of the chord eventually so that the music sounds like it's still played together. Okay, so we have our harmonic structure here with our chords changing per bar, and each chord itself has its own note, as we've been through in the hot video. So when I'm improvising as a bass, playing the C chord, I can choose any of those notes, generally speaking, to play with the C chord. So if the other musicians in the band, piano, guitar, violin, if they're playing notes around their C chord, then I can play either the C, the E, or the G, because those three notes are in that chord. And so the bass playing, say, a G note, whilst the guitar or the piano are playing like a full C chord, that'll still sound nice. Now, something else that's good to watch out for is notes in your chord that are close to the next chord coming. So for example, the next chord is F. So this E note here of the C chord is actually right next door to the F root note. So I could end on that note. So I could go C, G, E, F, because that is just a small step. And generally we like to do little small steps in music. It makes things flow. So it's a little trick that you need to learn. E, F. So the F note belongs to the F chord, but the E note before it, in the bar before, belonged to the C chord. And they're right next to each other, which is handy. So I might go C, G, E, F, A. And then this note here, C. That could be my quick note before I play a note of the G chord. What note of the G chord is this one close to? It's a question for you. So that's C. Pause the video and figure it out. If you guess this note here, which is I'm using my first finger on now, which is the B of the G chord, you'd be correct. Then I could go up to the high note of the G chord, which is note D, so B, D, and then end on the G. Now if I end on the G there, that's interesting, I can maybe go down to the F note from there to play the F chord in bar 4. Down to the F, so I'm in the F chord. And then maybe A, then the C again. And then we're at the end of the sequence. We played C at the end. Now that C there is the octave C above the first C we played. They're both the C root note, but they're an octave apart. So when I go F, A, C, there's a relationship between those two Cs. Remember, there's no wrong answer, so just give it a try. Might be a good idea to get up an app or something that plays those chords for you so you can play along.
Now,
Just squeezing it in.